How many times have you made yourself smaller just to keep a relationship alive, staying quiet when someone talks down to you, trying to look pleasant and quickly agreeing, while inside you strongly disagree? You tell yourself that you are being patient and understanding, but deep within you know you are betraying your own truth. Have you ever honestly asked yourself why you keep doing that, even when you clearly see that it slowly makes others respect you less? From the perspective of Carl Jung, lowering yourself to satisfy others is not real love or noble sacrifice, but a sign of a fearful ego. When you push down your real needs, your real emotions, and your real values just to be accepted, you are building a social mask to survive in the world. Jung believed that the longer you hide behind that mask, the more you lose contact with your deepest self, and from that loss are born emptiness, resentment, and a silent long-term exhaustion. And here is what most people fail to see. Your behavior, your habit of giving in every time, has quietly taught others how to treat you with disrespect and little appreciation. This message is here to confirm that truth. When you finally stop doing that, everything begins to shift. With 5 important lessons inspired by Jung's ideas, you can end the cycle of shrinking yourself for others. You can rebuild your inner boundaries and stand steady in your true value. Let us begin. Before we go deeper into this subject, I want to ask you something simple. Think about it carefully and reflect within yourself whether you have ever been in situations like these. Your boss asks you to work extra hours on the weekend, telling you at the very last minute. Each time you nod and say yes, even though you already planned to spend that time with your family. As a result, your Saturday passes with quiet frustration and hidden anger buried under endless tasks. Or you order food at an expensive restaurant, and when the waiter brings a steak that is far too overcooked and asks if everything is fine, you reply that it is fine even though your face clearly shows disappointment as you look at the burnt piece of meat. If you recognize yourself in these moments, it is very likely that you have been silently lowering your own deepest wishes. In modern psychology, this pattern is often described as being a people pleaser. This idea was studied in social psychology in the 1970s and still interests many experts today. A people pleaser is someone who tries to live in a way that makes others comfortable, often at the cost of their own joy. When someone constantly tries to please others, they are not simply being kind. They are adjusting themselves to match the image they believe the world expects from them. According to Carl Jung, this is the moment when the persona begins to control inner life. He explained that the persona is what we appear to be, not who we truly are, but what we and others believe we are. When a person lives too long inside that role, they slowly stop acting from what they truly feel or believe is right. Instead, they act based on the character they think they must maintain to keep acceptance. In that state, pleasing others is no longer a free choice. It becomes an unspoken obligation. Every word and action is filtered through the question of how others will react before it is even expressed. Personal value is no longer defined from within, but measured by how satisfied other people are. This is how people slowly accept giving up boundaries, hiding real feelings, and lowering themselves just to protect an expected image. The real problem is not whether others are satisfied. The deeper problem is that you have placed the power to judge your worth into their hands. When acceptance becomes the condition for you to feel valuable, you will be willing to drop your boundaries, accept unfair demands, and remain in relationships that drain your energy. This does not always happen because others plan to disrespect you. It happens because you have become used to lowering yourself as long as you still keep your position in their eyes. Jung believed that a healthy relationship does not require you to constantly prove that you are easygoing or never difficult. If you often have to silence your opinion, hide your emotions, or act against your inner truth just to keep peace, then that connection is held together by self-sacrifice, not real respect. True respect exists only when both sides can stand without one person needing to make themselves smaller to fit the other. When you stop trying to please everyone, you do not lose value. Instead, your value is no longer up for negotiation. You do not have to become cold or harsh. You simply need to act in alignment with what you honestly think and feel. Some people may resist this change because they are used to your constant adjustment. But relationships that survive only because you keep giving in were never balanced from the start. My friend Emily is a mother of two. After many years away from work, she had to return to earn money. It took her a long time to find a job, and she was afraid of being excluded by her colleagues. From the first day, she tried to connect with everyone. She often asked if anyone needed help. During lunch, she volunteered to order food for others or pick up meals. She did not even like milk tea, yet she ordered it with younger co-workers, hoping to be included in their conversations. She showed warmth and sincerity, yet her colleagues stayed distant. One day she overheard someone whisper, asking why she tried so hard to be close, saying it was unnecessary. You see, sometimes your effort is like a grain of sand in a desert to people who already decided not to value you. Even if you try to become the perfect social example, you cannot soften hearts that are closed. In such situations, your efforts are not only ignored, but sometimes even looked down upon. When you are used to pleasing others, you slowly notice something painful. You are not only saying yes for yourself, you begin carrying their emotional weight as well, and this is where kindness turns into a heavy burden. When someone regularly carries other people's emotions, it is not just compassion. It is confusion of boundaries between what belongs to you and what belongs to them. You feel responsible for calming someone's anger, comforting sadness that is not yours, fixing moods you did not create. If they are unhappy, you feel restless. If they are irritated, you feel guilty. Over time, you live in a constant state of alertness, always tense, trying to keep everyone calm even when you are tired. From Jung's point of view, this shows that psychological boundaries have been crossed. Each person needs their own inner space where they take responsibility for their emotions, thoughts, and reactions. When boundaries are unclear, other people's feelings flood into your space, and you start acting as if their emotions are your duty. At that point, you are no longer responding freely. You react from habit. T. Others must feel fine so that I can feel okay. This pattern is dangerous because society often praises it. People who carry others' emotions are called caring and thoughtful. But Jung warned that many behaviors seen as moral can come from denied parts of the psyche. He famously said that enlightenment does not come from imagining light, but from making the darkness conscious. What is denied here is your own anger, your resistance, your need to be considered first sometimes. These feelings do not fit the image of a good person, so they are pushed into the shadow instead of acknowledged. When anger is not recognized, it does not disappear. It turns into deep tiredness, quiet bitterness, and the feeling of being used. Outsiders may see you as patient and strong, but inside dissatisfaction keeps growing. Jung explained that the more the shadow is suppressed, the more it appears in indirect ways, through sudden emotional explosions, harsh thoughts, or even self-hatred for allowing others to cross your limits. Carrying other people's emotions is also a subtle way of lowering yourself. When you always place others' feelings above your own, you quietly confirm that their inner world matters more than yours. You accept that you must endure discomfort as long as they remain comfortable. Over time, relationships built this way become unbalanced. One side unloads, the other silently absorbs. Respect cannot survive long in such a structure. Jung did not suggest becoming indifferent. Empathy does not mean losing boundaries. You can listen without taking ownership of someone else's emotions. You can care without fixing what is not yours to fix. When you allow others to handle their own inner states, you are not weakening them. You are giving them the chance to grow. Anna was always described as considerate. In her family, she mediated every conflict. At work, if colleagues were stressed, she softened her voice and stepped back, even when she had nothing to do with the problem. In relationships, if someone seemed distant, she immediately assumed she had done something wrong. Slowly, she placed everyone else's feelings before her own. With time, she felt exhausted and less respected. Not because people openly insulted her, but because each time she carried others' emotions, she silently showed that her own boundaries could be ignored. She was not lowered by others. She lowered herself by living inside responsibilities that were not hers. When you stop carrying emotions that do not belong to you, you are not becoming selfish. You are protecting your inner truth. The shadow no longer needs to speak through bitterness because your feelings are acknowledged honestly. You begin to clearly see what is yours and what is not. From there, you do not need to shrink to keep peace. When you are used to carrying others, you easily slide into another trap. You start believing you must do more and prove more to deserve space. And this leads to the next pattern, proving your worth to those who never truly see you. When someone constantly feels the need to prove themselves, it is not healthy growth. It is long-lasting insecurity about personal value. They try harder, explain more, give more, hoping to finally be recognized. If others are distant, they question themselves. If others stay silent, they assume they are not enough. Over time, they measure themselves only through other people's reactions. Each time recognition does not come, they double their effort, even if no one asked them to. From Jung's perspective, this reflects an inferiority complex. Such a complex often forms when a person grows up feeling they must become something specific to be accepted. Jung once said that the greatest burden a child carries is the unlived life of the parents. When someone grows up believing they must achieve to be loved, the habit of proving themselves follows them into adulthood. They unconsciously seek environments where they must struggle for acknowledgement because it feels familiar. But proving yourself in places where you are not seen does not create respect. It strengthens the complex. Each time you try and still remain unseen, your unconscious collects more evidence that says you are not enough. Trying to prove your worth to people who ignore you is another way of diminishing yourself. You silently accept that their opinion matters more than your reality. You work harder than necessary, endure more than needed, and explain more than required. In the process, you grow tired and lose sight of where you are truly appreciated. Thomas lost his mother at a young age and longed for approval from his stepmother. Every time he achieved something, he shared it, hoping to hear pride. When he was promoted, she said he was lucky. When he finished a difficult project, she said timing helped him. No matter how much he explained his effort, her reaction stayed cold. Slowly he realized the painful truth. It was not that he lacked value, it was that she had no willingness to see it. Jung did not teach people to withdraw from the world completely, but he emphasized that real growth begins when you stop searching for value in places that cannot give it. You do not need to prove yourself to someone unwilling to understand you. When you remove your energy from these hopeless attempts, the inferiority complex weakens because it is no longer constantly triggered. When you stop proving your worth to those who do not acknowledge you, you are not becoming arrogant. You are returning your value to where it belongs, inside yourself. You act from conviction, not from hunger for praise. From that point, you no longer need to shrink to be noticed. Yet, even after leaving the need to prove, another trap remains. You may still let praise and criticism decide how you see yourself. Many of us have moments when we look at ourselves through others' eyes. We feel joy when praised and sadness when criticized. Slowly, we form the habit of measuring our worth through changing opinions. This habit is subtle. Some become overly sensitive to small remarks. Some constantly adjust their behavior to fit expectations. Some forget how to listen to their own voice because they are too busy worrying about perception. When you let others define your worth, you lower yourself without realizing it. Value is not something that rises or falls because of one sentence. But when you believe it can, you give control of your life to people who are not living it. Praise may lift you temporarily, but it also creates fear of losing it. Criticism may shake you even when it does not reflect truth. Jung described projection as a psychological mechanism where people push their own unaccepted parts onto others. He observed that what irritates us about others can lead to understanding ourselves. Many judgments directed at you reveal more about the speaker's insecurity than about you. When you accept every comment as truth, you carry emotional burdens that are not yours. Lily once feared returning home because relatives judged her for not marrying. A distant relative said her life had no meaning despite her success. She doubted herself and rushed into relationships just to silence gossip. Later, she realized her desire was to explore life, not to marry for approval. When she finally answered calmly that she was not ready and still had much to experience, something changed. She listened to opinions but did not let them control her direction. When you stop basing your value on comments, you become steady. You can accept helpful feedback without losing yourself. You can hear criticism without letting it define you. Only when you stop searching for worth in others' eyes can you live rooted and free. And then comes a final question. If a place constantly forces you to shrink, maybe the issue is not trying harder but knowing when to leave. There are times when the deepest pain is not rejection, but forcing yourself to remain where you no longer belong. You stay, you listen, you try, but inside a quiet voice says you do not fit here anymore. Many stay because they fear loss, fear judgment, or fear emptiness. Jung explained that the ego clings to the familiar for safety. It creates reasonable-sounding excuses. I must be patient. I cannot quit. They need me. Things will improve. These reasons sound mature, but often they hide fear of change. Meanwhile, the deeper self sends signals through exhaustion, numbness, and the need to constantly convince yourself to stay. Endurance is not always loyalty. If staying requires you to silence your truth and trade your dignity, it is not devotion. It is self-betrayal. Jung did not promote cold separation, but he emphasized that growth is impossible when you live against your inner truth. There is a clear sign that it is time to leave. You lose the ability to speak about what truly matters to you. You can discuss daily topics, but your essential thoughts have no space. Jung said loneliness does not come from having no one around, but from being unable to communicate what feels important. When loneliness becomes constant even in company, staying becomes self-erosion. Henry stayed in a workplace where his ideas were ignored. He told himself the company was struggling, and he must be patient. Eventually he was laid off while others with less experience remained. Only then did he realize his inner voice had warned him long before. He should have left when he first felt unseen. Leaving at the right time does not mean you are always correct or others always wrong. It means you recognize when staying pulls you away from yourself. Leaving is not punishment. It is protection. Leaving wisely begins with naming the truth honestly in your heart. I am not respected here. I cannot be myself here. This no longer fits me. When you admit this clearly, the ego loses power to confuse you. It also means returning responsibility properly. You are responsible for your decision, not for everyone's reaction to it. If you try to leave without disappointing anyone, you will again sacrifice yourself for peace. True leaving carries calm. It is not about winning. It is about wholeness. You step away to protect your inner axis of value. When you remain too long in disrespect, you teach yourself that it is acceptable. When you leave in time, you teach yourself the opposite. Your worth is not something to trade just to keep a place in someone else's life. Leaving is not failure. It is self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation that ensures you never have to lower yourself again. When you look back, you may realize the deepest wounds did not come from others' actions, but from the times you silently accepted them. Each unnecessary apology, each forced smile, each swallowed truth sent a message about your own value. From Jung's view, such pain sinks into the unconscious and becomes emptiness and quiet anger. You do not need to become small to be loved. You do not need to apologize to be accepted. You do not need to trade respect for temporary peace. When you stand firmly in your values, some people may walk away. That is not loss. It is necessary filtering. If these words resonate with you, take a quiet moment to reflect, not to judge, but to understand yourself more clearly. The path of self-respect is not loud, but it brings you back to your rightful place.